Hey guys, Bassias here, and today I am hopping back into r/malicious compliance for day number 29. And boy, am I having to scroll a long way down just to find some good stories at this point. I'm getting close to the point of just, like, I am not finding enough stories. Like, I'm all the way down here. I have one large, two medium, and a small for today. First up, you shade me with lunch detention? Joke's on you. I'll sit here forever. Had forgotten about this story until the other day when I was chatting with a friend I went to high school with. It's silly, but I think it fits. TLDR at the end. It was the late 90s. I was still wearing too much flannel and continuing my historical trend of keeping books from the library for much too long. I had a paper due for my sophomore global studies class, so I naturally took out more books than I could read, wrote the essay, and completely forgot about the books piled in the corner of my room. After a series of overdue slips sent to my homeroom, I eventually did return the 4 or 5 book one Sunday afternoon in the anonymous drop book lot during a study period. Promptly moved on to bigger and better things. About 2 weeks later, I was called down to the assistant principal's office in that space of time before classes officially started that was reserved for one thing and one thing only. The reprobates and delinquents were in trouble. I walked the halls thinking that surely this was just a timing mishap and I was being summoned to receive congratulations for some kind of award I didn't know I had entered into competition for. Yep, he just wants to prepare me for the surprise ticker tape parade. I was wholly unprepared to hear that I was receiving lunch detention to start immediately because I had not returned a single book. That I still remember was slim and had a white and red cover, and that my GS paper, from my GS paper research. I tried to argue that there was a mistake, since I was sure, like I am sure, that I have fingertips, that I had returned it. But he could not be moved. I was sentenced to indefinite lunch detention until I either returned the book or paid the $16 to replace it. I left the office late for first period, defeated, but kept my head held high at lunch later that day as I walked past the entirety of cafeteria, which held a couple hundred of my peers. Plastic food tray in hand, I went down the hall to the old shop classroom that had been moved and the awaiting detention. I checked in with Miss Brown at her desk in front and took an inconspicuous seat in the back. I stared at my canned peach slices. I braced for the worst. A murderous ruckus was going to break out at any minute, I could tell. But once my ears stopped ringing, I discovered that it was really a calm escape from the crowded and rowdy lunchroom. I ate slowly that day, enjoying my young thoughts and blissful quiet, and wonder what kind of heaven was this. To be fair, I did search far and wide for that book that first day. Attempts to find it in my locker, bedroom, and backpack were fruitless, and the general consensus in my home was that the school was being ridiculous. I certainly wasn't going to pay for something I didn't lose. So the next day, I considered my brief brush with the law and the invisible stain already attached to my reputation. I went armed with a book and my lunch past the maddening crowds to the detention room. I sat there day after day for nearly 2 months of lunches. In retrospect, to this day, those remain some of the most relaxing lunch breaks of my life. I had around 40 solid minutes to recharge in mostly complete silence with my reasonably priced lunch and whatever book I was currently reading. I had to recount my origin story a few times, Since no one could figure out how the quiet bookworm of a girl who had never been in trouble had landed in the wilds of detention, but I was mostly left to my devices in this newly found peaceful retreat. I was friendly with Miss Brown, who had worked for the district of my small town since I was in elementary school, and even hooked her up with a sweet horse whisper poster that she loved from my family's mum and pop store. She must have felt bad for me, because somewhere around the 1 month mark she started up a collection to cover the cost of the book. She added the initial donation, but teachers who would stop by to chit chat would add loose change to it, and race to buy my freedom was on. After a few weeks, she handed me just under $7. My love of solitude was no match for the guilt of carrying around that money for my mum, who just had started a new job in the school district. So with a heavy heart, I paid in full for the missing book and went back to my old lunch table in the thick of the action. Months later, during the last week of school, I was called down to the library at my convenience, and with sweaty palms forced myself to face the music over what was inevitably going to be yet another overdue book at the end of the day. Well, lo and behold, at the end of the year inventory check had located the book as waylaid in the wrong section of the library. I received a few sheepish looks from the librarians as they refunded the money and apologized in a backward way that still made me the bad guy, as overdue books are the real blemish on one's character. So how were they to assume that I didn't lose the book? Remember my mum's new job in the school? Well, she just happened to be walking by the library just as I was finishing up, and to say that she laid into them is far too extreme sounding. But she did scold some stern-faced librarians into giving me a proper apology. She also demanded that they look into reforming their system, and my favourite part, take the proper measures to expunge my record. She was very concerned about me carrying around the albatross of false accusation, apparently. And just like that, my life of crime was over. TLDR, got lunch detention thanks to a missing library book. Discovered I loved it. Intended to sit there the rest of my high school career until the teachers running detention took up collection to get me out. Book was found in the library, and my mum chastised women who were likely as old as time itself. Yes, 2 months of just detention. Like, if detention was like that every day, I would have caused a lot more trouble. Just so I could have a bit more silence. But seriously, 2 months over a damn book. Why? That's dumb. I don't care if you're sick. If you don't attend the final exam, you'll fail the subject. Oh, we got another sick story. Oh, hold out for the cancer or whatever it is. This story happened to me in my college days many years ago, and to this day, whenever I remember it, I let out a smile. I graduated in a traditional and very strict engineering school. At that time, there were not substitutive exams of any kind, no matter the reason. So it was uncommon for people to fail subjects because they couldn't attend the test day. In the end of my last year, I don't know how or why, since I took the vaccine, I got chickenpox. Luckily for me, I didn't suffer at all, maybe a day with mild fever, and that's it. All the itching was completely mitigated with medicine, although externally I looked really bad. More concerned about my appearance than anything, I called and asked if I could take my exam another day. The lady who answered it immediately denied my request as expected. Then, being as patient and kind as possible, I tried to explain my situation, but she was very rude, cut my explanation short, and not even let me say what my illness was. As a last attempt, I asked if at least I could take the exam in a separate classroom. Then she told me to wait on the line. I heard some people talking in the background and laughing. After she left me hanging for more than 10 minutes, she comes back just to say there is no way. So I thanked her and hung up. I don't really know what the heck happened, but I don't really know what the heck they expected, that I didn't come and fail my very last test. Hell no. So I went, looking absolutely hideous. Not a square inch of my skin didn't have a mad hash, including my face. In the class, after the monitor arrived, he told me to remove my sunglasses and cap as per regulations. And so I did, including my jacket and medical face mask. Oh boy, I will never forget his facial expression. And then my fun begins. During the test, I start to fake cough like a man about to die. Getting really good on my act was really amusing to see the Moses' reaction going from little apprehension to total panic until he gave up and left, leaving the class unattended. Barely able to hold my bursting laugh at this point, my colleague who got what was going on looked at me also holding his laugh and shaking his head. In the end, I did pretty well on the exam and had my fun, including paying a visit to the lady who left me hanging. Later on, after graduation, I found out through a friend that I became sort of a famous joke, like the guy who came back from the dead to his exam. Okay, it was chickenpox. It's funny. The guy that came back from the dead to attend his exam. Not only did you do good on your exam, you became a joke. You became a meme. You start at 7, you finish at 7. You're not specifying the times. AM, PM, what is it? Not sure if this truly belongs here, but here it goes. I used to work at a car company about 2 to 3 years ago as a telephonist on the night shift during 12-hour shifts. It was pretty good. 4 days working, 3 days off, and the pay was decent. However, most people didn't take their job seriously. They would call in sick or just not show up for work at all, and especially on nights when there were only 4 of us. If one person didn't show up, you felt it. I was a star employee. I showed up early, logged in, and started working usually from 6:30. I never took a sick day, changed my holidays to fit the company's needs, and worked any overtime they needed me to work. So I was so dedicated to the role I had worked on multiple occasions. 18 to 24 hours as people wouldn't show up for shift and they needed cover. It was my first real job and I believed in the company. I used the train system to get to and from work and always planned out my routes around as such I could to avoid being late. However, on this particular day, they were running a reduced service due to breakdowns. A lot of the trains had been repaired using less than stellar parts, and the wheels kept sticking to the track when they hit the brakes, causing wearing on the wheels in specific spots. So a lot of the trains were out of commission. On top of that, the train I was on had been stopped due to a signal issue for 15 to 20 minutes, which led me to being late. I had shown up about 10 minutes late to the start of my shift. Before I ever even sat down, my manager was giving me grief. Apparently they were mad because I had stopped other telephonists going home as someone had to work 10 extra minutes to cover my shift, as 2 people were ill and couldn't make it in. Now I hate being late. I was already pissed off that I was late, but my manager was giving me trouble as soon as I walked through the door. It just irritated me even more. My reply to him was as follows. Sorry, I was late. However, how many times have I ever been late? I show up 5 minutes before my shift every day. I stayed late to cover days before the train had an issue and it was out of my control. I was stuck underground with no signal to call or text to let you know. My manager didn't give a fuck. Their reply to me was, you start at 7, you finish at 7. You are in early on your own time. Those times you have stayed behind, you have been paid and no one asked you to. Okay then, was my reply. The next day was extremely busy. My colleague had left and only one of the morning guys had shown up for a shift to take over. As he sat down, I began to pack up. At 7 a.m, I left. As I usually helped out when this happened, everyone was surprised and had asked me where I was going. My only reply was, I start at 7, I finish at 7. This was my final shift, and so I was off for the next few days. On my first shift back, I get pulled into the office by my manager with HR. They tell me why I left a single telephonist on their own. I looked at my manager and repeated the exact same words that were said to me. My manager informed me, I start at 7, I finish at 7. The look on HR's face was priceless. She was pissed. She already had a staff issue to deal with, and on top of that, one of her most helpful staff members had been mugged off by a manager. She told me to go back to my desk and she needed to speak to the manager in question. 20 minutes later, the manager came back in looking absolutely defeated. He never ever said anything to me again about being late. Holy fuck! Yeah. I start at 7, I finish at 7. No less, no more. Sorry. I am just a rule. I follow the words to your exact specification. And this is what you get. You want straight A's? Okay, Mum. I'll get straight A's. This particular incident was back in 8th grade, but my mum's always been competitive about scholastic achievement. I wasn't bad at academics, but saved my competitive streak for more important things like kicking my friends' asses at Street Fighter. Anyway, the morning of the math test, I feel absolutely unwell. The conversation went something like this. Mum, I don't feel good. I need to stay home. No. She's from India. They straight up don't accommodate sick days. Hopefully it's changed since. I tried to explain that America is more chill about these things, but somehow it doesn't work. So I sped through the test, handed it in, ran out the door with permission, and vomited in the first toilet I got to. But yeah, definitely going home for the day. As a result of subpar performance on my test, my grade for the quarter was an A-. Cue Mum. An A is the same as a B. An A- is the same as a B+. You need to do better. I was pretty salty about the situation with the test. So like any 11-year-old with cable in my own room, I binge watched Tsunami instead of paying attention to my math homework for the rest of that semester. Shockingly, at the end of it, I had a B+. Mum wasn't pleased. Some kind of generic yelling letter I came back with, it's the same as an A-. Welcome to the community of property, Mum. TLDR, Mum tries to get me to do better at school, but phrases it in a way that justifies doing worse. Edit, I still did my homework. I'm not a maniac. Oh my god. It's like, I am a person that didn't do my math homework. Or like, I did my math homework in like 20 minutes, and then the rest of the time I had to just play games. Because like my one skill in school was mathematics. Anyways. Come on. Anyways, links will be in the description to my main channel and this channel as well. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. A ding, ding. Links also on the screen to the playlist and last episode. I'm Mad Scientist.